Her name is Aisha Shuaibu. She's an entrepreneur and social advocate who works in hospitality, business solutions, sports, and women's empowerment. She's the founder of Waffle Way, a popular breakfast and brunch spot here in Abuja. She's also the managing director of SWA Global, a company that helps businesses grow, and the president of SWA Sports, where she supports young people and traditional Nigerian sports. In this episode, she'll share how she builds successful businesses, stays creative, and uses her work to help women, youth, and communities. You'll learn about the challenges she has faced, the lessons she has learned, and how she keeps making a positive impact in the lives of so many people. Expect to learn simple mindset shifts and tools you can use to start your own business, and also how to push through setbacks and hardships. Now, without further ado, Aisha Shuaibu. What is it you do and why?
I am a multifaceted entrepreneur. I run a multitude of businesses. I've been in the food and beverage industry for a little over a decade now. Um, I now have two restaurant brands in Abuja. I also started sometime just before COVID a business consultancy and brand development agency called SWA Global, which came about in the course of just running a business and identifying certain skills that I felt like I developed and I wanted to be able to help uh, entrepreneurs on the come up to set themselves up, almost like a starter pack. So that's the second one. And then I started a sports agency 3 years ago, um, out of pure passion and just identifying opportunities in the industry, um, around the continent of Africa and wanting to play an integral role in its development, particularly in the growth and development of emerging sports. So all three came about from my deep love for creating and ideating and just building something from nothing to something. Why? Uh, I think that I've always been really locked into the dream and the desire to build something of my own and to make it lucrative and to over time convert everything that I'm able to build into something impactful. I've always been built that way in a sense that I never wanted to work in a corporate space or in a 9 to 5 sort of space. It was something that I was very sure of very early on in my life, from my mid teens. And I also started out very active in just wanting to do anything. So me in business was wanting to really tick many boxes, right? But mostly it was to be able to create something that had my name on it, to be able to gain financial independence through it, and to be able to create meaningful impacts as well.
Why not go through the 9 to 5?
I felt like the way that I was, character wise, personality wise, was a bit too much for the 9 to 5 space, in a sense that I've always been creative minded, but I've also always been high energy in terms of like being able to multitask, as well as just wanting one challenge after the other. I didn't want to be constricted to four walls. I wanted to be out there. I wanted to grow my network, to learn. I have a huge, 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 never ending pursuit of knowledge, desire. I wanted to fail so that I could learn and grow from it. And I really just wanted to put myself out there. I didn't really grow up seeing many Northern Nigerians, Northern women being active in the entrepreneurial space. And I really wanted to defy the norm. And I think this has really set the precedence for me for my entire life, vision, goal, in just wanting to be very deliberate about the way that I pursue my career. And this was the main reason why I just felt like the 9 to 5 space wasn't for me. I also had a taste of it during my NYSC year, and I felt like it was such a waste of my 1 year. I felt like I could have spent the time being in a private company, and I think at the time we weren't allowed to join private companies. It was just you either work for a government institution or nothing, right? So where I worked, I had a fantastic leader, fantastic boss, but the overall environment for me was just very discouraging and really restricting, and everything that I just didn't like about Nigeria. It was very time wasting, gossipy. It was just things that I didn't really like and things that I didn't have around me. So I just wanted to be free and I wanted to have the flexibility of controlling my own time and schedule. I also wasn't a morning person at the time. So those early mornings were killer. Not knowing that entrepreneurship was much worse when it came to timing. So yeah, that was what had happened.
Do you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
No, I don't. My mother was a homemaker, and my father was a soldier turned politician later on. So neither of them came from entrepreneurial backgrounds. In fact, there was a time on my business journey when I felt, and I think this happens to many people, when you feel like a sense of not a sense of loss, but a sense of just like really really wanting to know and understand why you're the way that you are. So I kind of went into a deep dive of my lineage to find out who in my family was like the strongest entrepreneur in like recent times. So back to my grandfather, my mom's dad, who was very popularly known as a strong entrepreneur in Kano back in the day, between Niger Republic and Kano. And I went all the way to Kano. I sat down with his cousins, the ones that were still alive, the ones that lived with him, spent a lot of time with him. And I recorded the sessions and I just kept asking them questions about, who he was and what he achieved. And everything that they were saying sounded so much like me. And I came back to Abuja feeling like, okay, that's definitely where I get it from. And it just made me feel so much more warm inside in terms of, okay, this is definitely in my bloodline, is what I should be doing. Because it's easy to feel like sore thumb because you just kind of stand out. And I have 9 siblings. So of all of my siblings, I would say myself and now my younger brother are probably the only entrepreneurial ones in the whole family.
And what was your family's reaction like when you said, I don't want a regular 9 to 5, I want to go for entrepreneurship?
They were generally supportive. My dad was a bit concerned because he felt like I wouldn't have structure in my life. Being so young at the time, in my early 20s, he just felt like entrepreneurship was probably a bit too unstable for me. And he wanted an environment where I would have the stability to, first of all, understand the civil service, of course, gain the experience as well, and prepare myself for marriage in the long run by just having something very concrete and structured. Because I guess he just felt at the time that it was more stable, it was more of a stable option. I had a completely different idea about it. I told him that I wasn't interested, point blank, I said it. And I always was very clear about the fact that I wanted to run my own businesses. Even when I didn't know what it meant, I knew that I wanted to build something. The very first thing that I ever did in my life was actually starting an NGO with my friends when I was in SS2. And that was kind of my intro into even being active in life and doing anything. So through that experience, I learned a lot about just like fundraising and putting it towards something. And I think I leaned into my natural self during that process, even though I was quite young. And it just set me on a path of wanting to do more that just felt very impactful, that felt like it was bigger than me.
A lot of people think 9 to 5s are secure and entrepreneurship is risky. I actually feel the opposite because when you have a 9 to 5, you're just one phone call away from not having your job again. What are your thoughts on risk when it comes to entrepreneurship and risk when it comes to 9 to 5? Like, which one do you feel is actually risky?
I agree with you. I feel like a 9 to 5 structure feels you are consistently like on thin ice. And like you said, you could just get a call and you lose your job. So being part of a system that would function with or without me never really sat well with me. And friends of mine that work in the West and are a part of huge, huge structures like Google and all these corporate jobs, and they're in there and they're there for years. And then maybe they get sick or they get pregnant or they get married or something happens that kind of interrupts their commitment to their work, and then they immediately get cut loose uh, for one reason or the other. And for me, that just always rubbed me the wrong way, because if you're that dispensable, then really is it worth it? Not only that, but the corporate chain doesn't value you as an individual. It values what you input. So I always say to my friends that have 9 to 5s, like, don't get important in work. Like, don't accidentally become too important in work, because the only reward for hard work is more work. My sister has spent the last 10 years now in the development space. And she has always had that problem. She's always worked in spaces where she kind of just like overdid it, and then she would get she would almost become like the second boss, even though her level didn't her level or her salary didn't attract that. And I said to her, you can't just stop over inserting yourself. Whereas with entrepreneurship, that insertion is necessary. You almost have to be insane to very intentionally and aggressively believe in your idea. And with entrepreneurship, everything revolves around you. And with everything that I've built in my life, I started out as a one-man show. And that's one of the hardest periods ever. So entrepreneurship is a risk in a sense that with entrepreneurs, today you have, tomorrow you don't. This is like the standard, right? Like, you start off with, say you have a restaurant, for example. You have maybe a steady fee that you pay yourself on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, and that's kind of coming in. But then maybe certain things affect the business, and then you have to make sacrifices when it comes to your earnings. Those are the risks attached to entrepreneurship, and you have to be ready for them, and of course be very aware of them. But I think that part of succeeding and doing well as an entrepreneur has to also do with mindset. You have to mentally kind of be there and also ready for whatever is coming in the long run. You have to prepare yourself for a lot of disappointments, for vulnerability. Being an entrepreneur is almost like being an artist, where you are putting something forward that was very intimate to you and started out in your own mind. Nobody was in there, nobody helped you create it, you created it yourself. And then it becomes something, and almost like a child, you set it out to the world, right? And then it's scary, because you're like, oh my gosh, what if people don't love my child? What if people respond negatively to it? So it's an extremely scary journey, and you have to have the grit for it. So it's definitely not for everybody, but it's for people that dare to dream, that are very audacious, that want to achieve great things. Because really, in trying to achieve great things in life, you have to really test yourself, and you have to throw yourself into the deep end and hope that you float. So there's risk involved in both choices. But as you get older in life, life generally gets harder. You just have to pick the kind of hard that you want for yourself. And I think both options, nonetheless, like whether you like it or not, they do serve you that difficulty. You just kind of have to pick which one you think is more suitable to your life and your future.
I want to talk about the mindset shifts that you had to develop in order to succeed at entrepreneurship. There was something you mentioned earlier that I found quite interesting, which is that you said, I wanted to fail. Most people don't want to fail. Besides, or we can even go deeper into that one, what are the mindset shifts that you had to adopt that if more new entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs to be adopted, they could win at this game long term?
Mentally, you have to, first of all, be like chronically disciplined. Nobody is going to wake you up early to attend to like the beginning of your day or the start of your day and all its responsibilities. Nobody is going to tell you when to go home at night. Nobody is going to tell you to try to balance the time that you're dedicating to your business to the time that you should give to your family, as well as maybe your other loved ones, your friends. Nobody is going to tell you that. And this is probably the most difficult thing about the journey. It's extremely lonely, especially when you're successful. The higher up you go, you kind of start to lose people along the way, because not because they're bad people or you're a bad person, but because you kind of enter into a world where you are thinking differently and acting differently and have also adopted a different lifestyle. So that was probably the first thing that was the most apparent to me, which wasn't necessarily a problem, because I did grow up in a disciplined background as the child of a soldier. So we had a very, disciplined environment around us already. And, alhamdulillah for the parents really that I had, because they just gave us, it wasn't it was strict to a point, but it wasn't like strict in like a abusive type of way. It was more strict in a sense that life is hard. You have a lot of like crazy things ahead of you and you need to prepare for it. And my parents always mentally prepared us for that. I also I'm really close to my siblings, like really, really close. We're super close. We were like the first friends that we ever had in life because we moved around a lot until we settled in Abuja. So being close to your siblings, you can always expect honesty when it comes to the way that you go about things. They have always been my first advisors, my first critics, and they kind of find a way to regulate me when I have started to shake or doubt myself. There's also people that have been there, done that in the world that you must try to emulate at the very least their best strategies and their best qualities. So that's something that I actively did as well. And for the most part, you have to go looking for inspiration. You have to seek it. It's not going to come to you. Motivation isn't going to come to you either. You have to be vulnerable enough to put yourself out there, test the market, and then use that to adjust accordingly. So it's extremely difficult. The world is also changing rapidly. So as you've started an idea, you may want to instantly adjust and shift it simply because you have been inspired or exposed to a better way of going about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So you have to be okay with change and you have to be ready to adapt to change. So my mindset shifted to make me more disciplined, to make me more focused, and to be intentional with the people and the minds and the conversations that I was surrounding myself with. What you consume on a daily basis contributes a lot to your state of mind, from what you listen to what you watch, to the people that you interact with, to the food that you eat. For many years, I was a chronic fitness junkie. I took my health and fitness really seriously. My dad is a diabetic, so he had a special diet. And I found myself gravitating more towards his diet at home at the time. So there were a lot of things that I didn't really indulge in that unfortunately I now indulge in. Like I was never a sweet tooth, but now I'm kind of leaning into it. So it contributed a lot to the way that my mind operated as well, because I was always eating clean and I was working out. So I did have a clear head. Spirituality, you have to be super locked into prayer because it forms like a really strong foundation for the way that you cope with your day to day. You will have the lowest moments and nobody is going to be there to help you go through it but God. And in prayer, you find so much solitude and peace. And that silence for me is really important at the start and at the end of my day, because it kind of brings everything together and allows me to prepare for the next day. So these for me were the things that worked.
So let's say I wanted to go down this path of entrepreneurship, but my parents did not approve. What would you advise?
To you or to your parents?
No, you advise me to do.
I think that it's important for parents to understand where you're coming from whenever you approach them with an idea. I think that when, at the end of the day, they do want what is best for you, and if they respond negatively or not in the way that you like to something that you say to them you want to do, they think that it's because they're looking out for you, and that's probably the best advice that they could have given you. But if you go out of your way to talk to them a bit more about where the idea has come from, why you want to do it, what impacts you think it will make into your life or in the lives of others, they would understand it better. And over time, they will support you. It wasn't really easy for my family either. It's not like it was an instant approval. My dad is the type of person that you have to pick the right time to speak to him, you know? So as children, we would always whisper whenever we had to go do a proposal. We called it proposals to my dad. It's almost like doing a proposal for like investors, where you go with your board and your charts and you're explaining numbers. That's how my dad works. You can't tell him one thing today, tell him another thing tomorrow. He won't take you seriously. So, it's very important to give parents context, because they are looking out for you, they care about you, and they don't want you to take risks that will hurt you over time. So getting to understand why you're doing what you're doing, and then getting them to understand it, plays a huge role in their support.
How do you navigate letting go of friends that are no longer on this path that you're on? Because something I know from my own experience with entrepreneurship is that it gets really lonely. And sometimes, even though I did not feel this, I can feel that people feel tempted to want to go back to doing what they were doing, hanging out with their friends, even though those are not the habits that they should engage in to achieve the goals that they want. So, what would you say to people who are surrounded by friends that are not on the same path as them, but they find it difficult to let go of those friends because they have history together, they've known them since they were young, and so on and so forth?
I would ask them what kind of future they see for themselves, because it's simple, right? You surround yourself with the people that are not thinking and living like you, and you are trying to grow and get yourself out of a certain place to a higher place. The people that are still stuck in the past will drag you back to the past. That's inevitable. It's just human nature. You must intentionally and deliberately surround yourself with people that are much more accomplished than you and smarter than you, that are doing much more than you. The people you want to be, you will be, because you surrounded yourself with them, and they are consistently talking about that future that you want to give yourself, no matter what your goals are. There's nothing wrong with keeping friends. I think it's extremely important to have childhood friends in particular, because every human being needs people that know them really. It's one of our needs as human beings. We need people that know us, understand us, love us unconditionally. But you must really ask yourself if the time that you're dedicating to these people, if it's time that you could be using surrounding yourself with people that are much smarter, much wiser, much more successful, so that you can begin to emulate them. Is it really worth it? You know what I mean? So I would just say that, think of the future that you want for yourself. Don't feel bad about leaving anybody behind. Everybody's responsible for the lives that they live. And I think that it's also important that, as somebody that is extremely ambitious, you surround yourself with people that get it. Because if you don't, some people will judge you for it and bring you down for it. Uh, they will make you feel like you are too much for where you are. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage people to try to leave their homes. Like, leave where you grew up. Leave, even if it's for a little bit, even if it's for a short while. Just step outside of it, because you must expose yourself to a world outside of it. It makes your problems seem smaller. It makes your friends, seem like matters of the past, because you should be moving forward. Your friends, and really, if the tables were turned, are these people that would keep you around if you were dragging them back? So that's another thing. You must look at things both ways, and know that there's also a lot of people around you that don't want what is best for you, because amongst friends, envy is very common. And it's not something that is intentional. Not everyone decides that they want to be jealous or envious of their friend, or they want what their friend has. It just kind of happens. As life falls in your favor, you begin to get a feeling and energy of resentment from certain people around you. And that can be really hurtful when you prioritize, or have always prioritized, these people. And then overnight, it almost seems like the energy from them is proving to be something different. So I would say, in those cases, like, those are really dangerous cases, and you have to just move away from those people. You are not here to please everybody. You're not here to, you can't even please, it's not possible to please everybody. So while you are trying to preserve friendships, which you should preserve friendships, keep in touch. As we say in Hausa, zimunci, keep in touch, check in on people, see how people are doing. Don't completely abandon them just because you now lead a busy life and you're maybe moving around so much and all of that. Keep in touch with people. It's important that you do that. But don't make them your morning and nights. Don't make them your lunch and your dinner. Don't make them your entire world. I think it's fair to give people your time. It's their right as people that have been there for you, but don't over insert yourself. You have to really prioritize your future and what lies ahead.
You launched a company called Waffle Way. For anyone that doesn't know, what is it and what were the challenges you faced early on?
Waffle Way is was my first business venture that I started out when I was in university. It started out as Waffle Stop, which was the original name that I created when I was in university as my final year project during my master's program. And it eventually evolved into I rebranded it into Waffle Way. That's a business that is very close to my heart, because it wasn't something that I thought would even work out to begin with. It was a final year project from university that went from paper to reality in Nigeria. And I was just blown away by how successful it became as a brand name and in the lives of people as well. I have people that have been customers of Waffle Way since we were Waffle Stop, and there's children that have grown up with the brand, and that just means so much to me. But there's nothing in my life, I think, that tested me as much as that business. It drained me to my core. It's challenged me. It opened up my eyes to the realities of business partnerships, investments, expansion, unforeseen disasters and circumstances. The Waffle Way branch, the only one that I have, recently had a fire incident, and most of it got burnt down, and that was something that just happened out of nowhere. But immediately, I knew that I had to just be patient, because as everybody kept telling me as well during the time, I just had to be patient and know that something bigger was coming. So we are currently rebuilding, but that's a business that took a lot out of me, and I was close to quitting it many times. And that's why I said in the beginning of running any sort of enterprise, you're a one-man show, and I was a one-man show for a long time. But eventually, by the time things started to get stable, there were other challenges that came, and it took a lot out of me, but it also helped me to grow a lot. And it also brought things into perspective as far as where I wanted my life to go, because your first business, or at least any business, can really make you feel like this is your entire world. So by the time I started to step outside of it and get interested in building other things, it made me realize how much more I could do, especially since I wasn't only giving my time to my business, I was lending my voice to so many advocacy things in terms of women and youth. And I realized that, okay, as a business person, as a human being, there's so much more that you could be doing other than running a business. And I think that was when I started to kind of diversify in terms of what else I could build and what else I could give my time to.
Quitting is such an interesting subject because sometimes it's the smart decision and sometimes it's not. How can you tell the difference?
Advice goes a long way. Talking to people that have been there, done that goes a really long way. I I can't say that I've been able to pinpoint exactly when it has been the right time to call it quits on anything. To be honest, I've never really quitted on anything. I've always kind of seen things through, or taken the the wheel and just kind of carried on the process. But I will tell you where my current mindset is, and that's not in quitting, but in knowing when to take a step back. In business, there's opportunities sometimes where your business does really well, and then you're in a crossroad where you're thinking of expanding, or you're thinking of selling, or you're thinking of bringing on somebody else to manage it for you. And for me, I've gone into that phase a lot, and I'm still currently there, because of course, for me, I'm an ideator. I love to just create, right? And my dream life would be that I build to sell. That would be my dream and ideal life, building to sell. But as an operator, it's a total nightmare, because you never stop having to uh, micromanage, which is extremely tedious. And as you get busy, as you get older, as you deal with responsibilities in life, it's just so much harder. Quitting, I think, is also not necessarily the worst thing you could do in the world. I think, again, back to the long-term vision statement, you must just kind of know where your life is headed and where you want it to head, and how to go about the decision that would favor that direction. So I would say that one of the first things that you should definitely do when you're considering quitting is just talking to somebody that is probably in the same industry as you, that has been there, done that, and that is on the path, that has been on your path, and that is on a much bigger path now, and speaking to them about it, and they would be in a better position to guide you. And again, back to the prayer point, making sure that you go to prayer and you rely heavily on prayer, and where it kind of directs you to after you've made those prayers. And that's something that for me works a lot after I've kind of consulted and spoken with my family. Prayer is kind of like the final nail on the coffin that I lean to help me decide what to do next. So that's probably what I would advise, because that's what has worked for me.
You said you were thinking of quitting, but you didn't.
So I'm not thinking of quitting. I'm thinking of how I can be more efficient in my current position. Running multiple things is difficult, because one of those things or all of those things would have to suffer. must suffer, right? Because you're only one human being, and really, as life happens to you, multitasking just gets more difficult because you just have so much more responsibilities, right? And yeah, there's just, I'm at a point now, I think, where I'm thinking of how I can empower more managers around me. And it's important to do that as well, because hiring staff alone, you see how something that you've built is able to feed somebody. And that's an incredible feeling, right? You're able to make an impact in people's lives. I've had staff that have been with me for the last 7 years, and they feel like family at this point. So right now, my biggest priority is growing all of my teams across everything that I do, having more people around me, more women that are leaders and trustworthy, that are able to build and grow, and having other ideas come into my ideas and have them be better executed. I've acknowledged the fact that I'm not always going to have the best ideas, and I'm not always going to be able to be at my full capacity, but I am tired. If I'm honest, I'm tired. Over 10 years growing something, it takes a lot out of you, and it also brings things into perspective. And for me right now, my biggest goal is, what is my next decade going to look like? I just want to know what to put my energy into and what I should double down on, because that's also going to play a huge role in your legacy and what you leave behind. So it has to be intentional, it has to be purposeful, and it has to involve other people, because you can't grow anything without people.
When you started Waffle Way, before you established it, I take it you had to raise capital.
I had to raise capital, but the nature of the business at the time, I started it at my parents' house, literally on the dining table. My dad always makes fun of the fact that I was using his generator. So I would always have the gen on just because I had to make orders. And I had one member of staff, and him and I were making orders and delivering orders, and I was doing procurement, and I was doing all of that myself. And it was a madness. I had to raise capital, but it was very, very little, and I paid it back in under 6 months. And I just did it amongst family and friends, and I used it to start myself off very, very small, because it was a consumer product, and it was also something that I could create multiple things out of, because you're using basic ingredients for the same things. So I also started to slowly gain more publicity, because I was kind of putting the business out there, signing up for more events. But the scale didn't actually come from capital. The scale came from favors. It came from people believing in what I was building and giving me the opportunity to grow that. The first place that I ever set up the business at was much smaller than this room, and it was rent free. I didn't have to pay the person anything. I didn't have to pay them a part of my earnings. There was no profit share, nothing. It was just, listen, I have a space here. Why don't you move into it? Come and do your thing. And I need someone to just offer food, and why don't you take that opportunity? And I did, and I was so grateful for that. And that led to the next thing, which was, okay, come to this place that is even bigger and much more welcomes a larger group of people, and come and set up. And again, no rent, but then we can do a profit share. So it grew organically. And I wouldn't advise that approach for everybody, because I think in today's world, businesses can scale at a much faster pace, but it worked for me. I was 23, 24. I was not looking to expand, because it wasn't an industry that I was completely familiar with, especially since studying business and doing business are just two different things. So I had my 2 business degrees, but I didn't have any business on the ground experience. And doing business in Nigeria is a completely different ballgame. So I just had to give myself enough time to learn the industry, understand it more, and do things in my own way as well. And for the most part, the customers shaped the nature of the business and the direction that it took. And social media played a huge role in uh, our brand strength and what we were able to become. But yeah, capital is super important, but it's not everything. I think strategy and luck is everything for the most part. And if you are lucky, things will fall in your favor. And without even having so much, you end up with so much. Entrepreneurs need less than they think. And I always say that.
I think there's a saying that I've heard a popular entrepreneur share, which is that start with what you have.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. Just people let good ideas go because they feel like they don't have enough capital for it. It's like a young man waiting to make $1 million before he gets married because he feels like, I'm not financially ready. sometimes the journey just comes with the right blessings and things just kind of fall into place. It's the same with sometimes people that have children that they're not prepared for. And I tell the ones that I know of that have had children that just came as a surprise, that just watch how things fall into place for you. It's just one of those things in life that blessings come, blessings flow where energy goes and effort goes. And as long as it's honest and you're not cheating anybody and you're not trying to bring anyone down by it, some way, somehow things just fall in place. And you don't need to overthink the process. You just need to trust it and have a lot of faith. And it's hard, but things will eventually fall into place.
Let's talk about your other companies, SWA Sports and SWA Global. What are those?
So SWA Global, which is currently dormant because I'm stretched. I'm stretched. Um, I don't go looking for clients. It's again a business that came about because I just thought I have services that I could be rendering. Same way you do some of your workshops. I felt like there's an opportunity here to serve other entrepreneurs with a startup package, with something that could help them start off. But then COVID came, and I ended up being inactive in that business for over a year, and it just I felt very discouraged by it, especially because consultancy in this part of the world doesn't do very well either. People have a problem with just committing to consultants, maybe because they feel like it's as easy as let me just tell you how to do it. You tell me how to do it, and that's it. Right. But consultancy goes way beyond that. This is people's time, it's people's experience, it's value that you're bringing to the table. And we don't have a society that appreciates that. So that's a business that I think has kind of taking the backseat a little bit. I've tried to get my siblings to take it on, but they're not entrepreneurial like that. They don't really care. My sports agency, on the other hand, is something that came about from pure passion. I grew up playing basketball, running, ran track in school, a bit of football, a bit of volleyball, some other stuff. And it's something that also just was very natural in my household. We grew up as a sporty family. I have mostly brothers, so it was a very active and sporty household. My father, being in the army, was very active with us, running and doing all these things. So I've always loved sports. And as I got older, I played less and I just kind of watched more on TV. So I started to notice that there was a lot of shifting happening in the African sports landscape, and there was an opportunity to do more, especially because a lot of international leagues were now starting to set up on the continent, because everybody has acknowledged the fact that Africa has a lot of local talent, but the industries in Africa need a lot of development and investment, and there's a chance to attract that. So I wanted to be a part of that growth, and that's why the agency came about 3 years ago. And so far, we've been able to position ourselves as a credible sports for development agency that helps professionals to set up high impact projects in Africa around emerging sports like basketball, combat sports, and American football. Three areas that are fast evolving, fast growing on the continent. It's our way of merging profitability with social impact. It's a way to be a consultant to help to execute projects that could look like workshops, scalable workshops, conferences, live sporting events, anything of that sort. And also a way of developing athletes, grassroots local athletes, young people that would probably not have an opportunity on a normal day to create a career out of sports, young people that are on the streets but are naturally gifted with athletic talent that could be playing a sport, developing them, and then also developing those sport, which I think is extremely important to the African narrative and African story. There's a lot of sports that we have that are traditional and native to our heritage, like Dembe, for example, from northern Nigeria, that has been in existence for centuries. And these are sports that are currently being commercialized, or they're trying to commercialize sports like that and exporting them. But it's also a means of livelihood for young people. It's a means of livelihood for athletes, and a way of self-expression. I know what sports did for me when I was younger. I was a tomboy, I was active, I was very uh, very dominating and competitive, and sports was such a safe space for that, because there was nothing else. I wasn't an artist, I wasn't skilled, I couldn't draw and paint and do things, I wasn't crafty, but I was fast and I could jump really high and I could shoot well. So sports was a safe space, and it made me feel that sense of teamwork and togetherness. And it teaches you so much about winning and losing. And it does so much for personal development. And it teaches you discipline. So I thought about all of these things, and I thought this is an industry that I have to be a part of, because the growth is going to be rapid and it's going to spread across the world. And it's going to be because we were able to take ownership of our story and narrative in Africa and send it out to the world and connect our athletes to the outside world and give them opportunities to make something of their lives from home soil. You know, Nigeria is a hub for some of the greatest athletes that have ever existed across multiple sport. So our agency is there to help develop the landscape of African sports. And so far we've done a decent job in doing that. And right now we're just looking to scale our operations.
After being in the sports and restaurant industry or industries for so long, what lessons have you learned that people can benefit from? And when I say people, I mean people that also want to go into those industries. Like, what are things that you're like, before you go into this, this is what you have to know?
For the sports sector, one thing that I always say is that sports touches on multiple disciplines. As a podcaster, as a merchandiser, as a lawyer, doctor, engineer, you have a career in sports. There's something there for you. You can be the first African within that space and you would succeed heavily in it. You could be Africa's #1 sports broadcaster, merchandiser, lawyer, whatever it is, there's space in there for you. So I always say to people, men and women, boys and girls, that think about it, because if we don't have homegrown talent, skilled people that are coming out of Africa, out of Nigeria, in this industry, then the international leagues that are setting up here are going to need to keep importing that talent, which makes no sense to me. Imagine a FIFA in Johannesburg, or in Kenya, or in Ghana, or in Nigeria, and they are like 90% foreign, Caucasian. You know what I mean? It's like, this is an African set up league. And there's nothing wrong with having a mixed group of people, but why don't we welcome talent locally? Why don't we hire locally? Why don't we develop the people that we have here? So one of the things that we actively do at SWA Sports is to educate people on sports as a business and sports as a career path, not only for athletes, but for non-athletes as well. So there's something there for everyone. That's the first thing I would say. For the restaurant business, I would say that you need to have really thick skin, because that's a service-based business and you're catering to people, and Nigerians are not easy people to please. So you need to have really thick skin. You need to prepare to adjust. There's a lot of restaurant owners that think that they're right all the time. You are not right all the time. You have to really listen to your audience, to your customers. Where there is demand, supply. Where there is a request, provide it, and adjust accordingly, adjust to the market. You're never going to be perfect, but if you pay close attention enough to it, then you will go very far. Don't abuse your finances. Don't overpay yourself too early. I used to pay myself, still kind of pay myself scraps, if I'm being honest. It's not an industry that I'm making so much in, but it pays the bills, and thank God for that. But don't get too excited. It's not about quick rewards. It's about delayed gratification. It's about what you're building and your name and the quality that you're hopefully providing, and making a difference in people's lives. Because of you, you're able to feed staff. Because of you, you're able to create an environment, a positive environment for people to come and spend their time. And I think that's very powerful and important. So attach meaning and a personality to your business. Don't let it just be a business that people see 0%. I love to walk into a space and I almost feel who the owner is, because the place has come alive. There's like plants and there's little quotes and there's positive, it feels like such a airy and positive environment. And those are spaces that every human being deserves to be in, especially Nigerians, because life is just so hard here, right? So think of what is missing in the lives and minds of people in your community, in your environment, and provide that through your business. So don't let it just be for profit. Let it be way beyond that.
Let's say you had the chance to redesign how entrepreneurship is supported in Nigeria. What is one change you would make that you feel would have the biggest impact?
I would set up a fund that caters specifically to businesses earning less than a certain amount. There's things like that that exist already, but I think that would be where I start. Simply because, again, there's great ideas that don't end up coming to fruition because people don't get the funding for it. So I would probably come up with a very rigorous process in screening businesses and providing funding for them to succeed. Regulations, the newly signed or newly passed tax law, I think, has created room now for businesses to not be as exploited as we used to be in the past. And, still now, by getting taxed by multiple agencies. I think it's really unfair for SMEs to have to consistently deal with multiple taxation. It makes no sense. This isn't an environment where people are even feeling the rewards of paying taxes. And because of that reason, businesses are always very hesitant to attend to agencies that harass for excessive taxation. I think businesses are saving our country. They are powering our streets. They are providing security on our roads. Because of businesses, there's an economy. And I think that that needs to be taken more seriously. I think that women-led businesses should be more empowered. More attention should be paid there because women are building incredible, incredible solutions. And I say women because we are more often the neglected bunch, because we just don't speak for ourselves and we don't demand what we deserve. And I always say to women that, you have to live your life like a very audacious man. You have to live yourself with a lot of audacity, and you have to demand for more, and you have to walk the path of someone that is deserving of more, because there's a lot of them, even within my own circle. I mean, women are achieving some incredible things. And if it was within my power, I would provide a huge pool of funding that allows them to scale, because I know that their solutions, their ideas, their businesses are in the long run going to provide uh, a chance for Nigeria to be at the forefront of success within that industry. So I think that supporting SMEs is necessary for every country. The best thing that you can do is to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. The harder it becomes, the more intimidated youth will become in setting up businesses. And we don't need that right now. We need more solutions, we need more ideas, but we don't need reasons for them to be afraid to start.
Assuming you lost everything, what are the steps you'd take to rebuild right now?
I don't have that kind of attachment to my businesses, because if I've built something once, I can do it again, surely. I don't have that kind of an attachment. I don't have an attachment to material things at all. It's not how I grew up. And I didn't also start business solely because I wanted to be financially independent, although that's a factor. But I really just wanted to create and I wanted to make impact. When I was in like primary three and they were asking us, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? I really didn't even know what to call what I wanted to be. I just knew that I wanted to change the world. I wanted to make impact somehow, and that was just from watching my mom, serving as first lady when my dad was governor, and watching her attend to women and children, and her going to orphanages and feeding sick babies and just loving people. And I just thought to myself, I want to do that. I don't even know what that is. I just want to do it. So I always say that I just stumbled into business accidentally, even though my family say that I have entrepreneurship in my blood. But a huge part of me isn't even motivated by any of that. A huge part of me is motivated by providing solutions and just creating something. And I think that's why I keep building. My friend always says, you're always creating something. I'm like, yeah, it feeds my inner child somehow. There's the need to grow and to succeed at it. It's not any I always say that I have no sense of accomplishment, because whenever I reach a particular goal, by the time I reach it, I've already gone over it. I swear, like almost every single time. It's very difficult for me to celebrate something, some sort of milestone. I'm trying to change that now, because I think it is important to acknowledge milestones. But uh, it's not my motivating force. I just want to make sure that anything that I'm giving my time to and my energy to and my brain to is something that is going to be bigger than me and play a bigger role in my community, and to somehow pour back into people and give back to people. So if I lost everything today, alhamdulillah, it's literally going to lead me to my next thing, and it would probably create the avenue um, for the next thing, and there's always a story to be told. So unfortunately, what is bad for your heart is good for your art. So the worst things that would happen to you end up making the best stories. So I always say that, like, at the moment when you're dealing with something devastating, it's very difficult to see the silver lining, but over time it creates a good story. So I would spin it and make a story out of it, and I guess find a way to sell that. But yeah, I don't attach too much to what I have or what I've been able to build, because I can just build it again. Whatever I had that maybe I bought, I can just buy it again one day. I know what I started with, and it was nothing. And even when it took a lot of time to convince my family, my parents particularly, to just know that this was the road I wanted to take, by the time they believed in me, that was all I needed. So as long as I have my family by my side, my husband, my friends that are by my side, that believe in me, that always push me to be my best and to be my best self, I'm always going to reach it, inshallah. So nothing really intimidates me in terms of like what could go wrong, because inevitably something will go wrong anyway. You just kind of have to be ready to keep the ball rolling.
You were an entrepreneur before you got married.
Yeah.
What do you say to women who, quite similar to the question I asked earlier about parents not supporting, women who want to go down the path of entrepreneurship, but their husbands are like, nope.
Just like the parent question, I think it's important that before you get married, the conversation is had. You need to really know who you're with. I know there's people that pretend, and then after they get married, they come and they say to you, "Oh, yes, I did say you could work, but now you can't." It's extremely important that before you get married, there's some very serious conversations that need to be had, and that's one of them. What do you want to do with your life? How do you want to earn? For the man, how do you plan on taking care of us? Even if you know he's a pilot, for example, what if that doesn't work out? What if that fails? What is plan B? I had those conversations with my husband. What is our plan B as a family? Like, what is, this is what I'm doing, this is what you're doing, but what is our plan B if both of us end up failing? Right. So I think those conversations should be had. And as a woman, you have rights. Islamically, you can lay stuff out and say, if he breaches this, then this is what I want out of it, or I want out. You can set your boundaries. You have that right. For other faiths as well, I think bring in the people that are relevant to your situation, and let them know in advance, like, okay, well, this is who I'm marrying, and he has said that I can work. And then if by the time you get married he says that you can't, then that's something that you can present as a very strong case. Of course, this doesn't always work out for people. I mean, there's different situations and cultural um, factors to consider as well. But I think that before you go that route with somebody, before you marry a woman, before a woman you marry a man, you need to have some really serious conversations. And how money is coming in is one of those important conversations, or at the very least, how you're going to be productive. And by the way, just to be on the record with this, I think it's very encouraged for both parties, both a husband and a wife, to be engaged somehow. So even if the woman is not entrepreneurial, even if she's a homemaker, find a skill that you can develop, find a hobby that you can love, that can pour into you, because being in a marriage isn't enough, and having children isn't enough. There's always more that you could be doing with your time. You're a human being, and you need to be stimulated. You need dopamine, and you don't want to be looking in the wrong places for dopamine. You want to make sure that you're pouring your time and energy into the things that actually give you life and contribute to your growth and development. So I would say it's extremely important for both men and women to be productive, and for that productivity to have purpose attached to it.
You mentioned that you had gone through some very, very difficult moments during your entrepreneurial journey. What has been your darkest day, and how did you turn the lights back on?
I think that the darkest days, and there definitely hasn't been one, for me, are days when everything is kind of coming down at the same time. It's when you are already defeated from a difficult day at work, when you're defeated by um, something just going wrong in your business life, whether it's a sour business relationship, or it's a sour circumstance, or a really terrible maybe incident with a client or a customer, or an accident that happened, whatever the case. When that happens, and then a personal life issue happens as well. I think what comes to mind right now is maybe 3, 4 years ago, when I was in a turbulent time in my business for multiple reasons, and my older brother lost his son. The day that he was born was the day that he passed. He had a health issue and he didn't make it. And that was a really dark day for my family, because it was one of those periods where I was dealing with a lot, I was juggling a lot. And that tragedy happened, and that devastated all of us. I think in recent years, and probably the last 5 years, that was probably what took me off the edge. It took me off the edge, and it was a super dark time that required a professional to come and get me out of that dark hole. And the worst part is, when the worst things happen to you as an adult, you still have to put up a face and go out to the day. You can't, especially as an entrepreneur, and that's one of the things, right? You can't just like be like, all right, well, I'm gonna stay indoors and not attend to anything today because I've had a bad day. Like you almost don't have a choice. You're like a slave to your work, right? You have to just pick up and keep it moving. And for me, I had to just pick up, keep it moving. But when I was home around my family, it was like a really dark period, and we all had a really tough time navigating that. So I think off the top of my head, that's probably the most difficult time. But I will say that it does, difficult moments do make you stronger. It helps you to come through for people in your circle that go through difficulty as well, because you've gone through your own version of it, and you've kind of built resilience around it, through faith and through the support of friends and family. You were able to kind of build yourself out of that phase. So when you go through something, you're going through it not only for you, but for the people around you as well. So that when it shows up again in someone else's life, you know how to show up for them. And then you know how to show up for yourself again when it comes later. And then you can now tell yourself, I've been through worse. So when something happens, you can say to yourself, I've been through worse. Random story, when I was in university, my laptop got stolen when I was writing my dissertation. I was probably 6,000 words in and it wasn't backed up, and it got stolen. This was during my undergrad. And I called my dad, and I was devastated. I was crying on the phone. I was bawling. And I'm not a crier, but I was in so much shock that day. I was like, oh my God, where do I even begin to write this thing again? And then my dad was on the other line, and he was just quiet. And by the time I finished, he was like, people are dying in the world, and you're upset over your life. Of course, this wasn't the best thing that he could have said to me at that time, right? But what that taught me was it's true, right? When something happens to you, there is you have to kind of take a step back a little bit. Yeah, of course, feel everything. It's how you feel is completely valid. But one of the ways that you can get stronger is when you just think other people have it much worse. Someone is dealing with something much worse, and it could have been worse for you, but it wasn't, So one of the ways that you can cope out of difficult circumstances is when you just think of how much worse it could be, and be grateful that yours wasn't worse and you're still alive. And for the fact that you're still alive, there's still a chance to redeem things the next day when a new day comes. So a support system is necessary. You need to have those people that are like your people and are there for you and are there with you and to carry you through the difficult times and difficult moments. That's like 100%. Faith is everything, because it grounds you and it gives you that extra support. And then, family. So for me, that's how I navigated, and that's how I always navigated. And I always pray that I'm never tested with more than I can handle. And I used to pray for strength before I stopped. I used to pray for strength because I used to think that one of the things that manifested my difficult days were the fact that I was praying for strength. So it was like those things were coming to make me strong. I don't pray for strength anymore. I just pray for lesser trials. I pray for lesser trials. And, I have nothing to complain about right now. Alhamdulillah.
You seem to have absolute clarity when it comes to what you want out of life. And today we live in a world where so many people are lost. They don't know what they should be doing. They don't know how they should be spending their time or what they should be pursuing. What can you say to people in that boat?
You have to do everything with purpose. It's very easy to feel lost in the world when you're just chasing, and it's not leading to anything. It's chasing to get, but not chasing for anything higher. You have to attach purpose to everything that you're doing. And for me, that's like something that has always been there. I don't create anything without thinking of the end. I don't start anything without thinking of what is coming, or at the very least, what the journey will likely be like. And I knew by the time I started building my businesses and started doing things like this, talking about it, doing interviews and attending engagements and talking to young women and youth, I was like, okay, there's a much bigger picture here when it comes to having a public work life. And for me, that has always been the only public thing about me, right? Like my career is what's out there, and it was intentional. And I just wanted to encourage others, because growing up, I didn't see anybody that was who I wanted to be. I knew exactly the life I wanted for myself, but I didn't see a single person that was like, yes, this is like the person to live up to. I saw people that had like little characteristics here and there of what I wanted to achieve, but there was none that was like me, I couldn't see myself in those people. All I saw were just roadblocks and reasons why I couldn't and reasons why I shouldn't, and just constantly being told who you are. And I hated that. Like, don't tell me who I am. Don't tell me anything about, don't even force things on me. So I grew up just hating to be put in a box, hating to be told what to do. I hate dependency so much. So I just very early on just leaned into who I was. And I think it's important for people to know who they are. Like, you have to know who you are. You have to know where you come from, why you're the way that you are. And I've always been very self-conscious. Um, I think that when you are an introspective person, and I call myself that for sure, you always go back to the drawing board and you reevaluate yourself. I am definitely my toughest critic, and I've always been. So sometimes when you even hear people telling you things about yourself, you're just like, that doesn't even sound like me. You know what I mean? So you have to really know yourself, because if you don't, people will tell you who you are and it'll be wrong, So you have to like attach purpose to what you're doing. You have to know who you are, so that when the world starts to put you in that box, you break out of it immediately. And you're like, nope, that is like whatever you people are trying to paint, that is not who I am. And then you have to kind of take ownership of your story and your narrative. You have to tell people, this is who I am. And then people are eventually going to treat you as you present yourself. You say to people that I am capable of carrying a 1,000 story building, they would start treating you like you can carry a 1,000 story building. You have to walk in the path of the person you want to become. And I'm also very conscious of the digital age and my unborn children and what they will eventually find about me, right? So I'm very conscious about the fact that I will have my nephews and my nieces and my stepdaughter and my children coming up, and they are going to be looking at who I was. And because who you are around children is extremely important, this is something that definitely haunts me and puts me in check. So you must, even if you don't care what your children think of you, right? If you are somebody that through your work, you are eventually going to be an influential person, you must think about how that influence is going to translate into the lives of the next generation. We're in a digital age. A lot of young people are lost. A lot of them are confused. A lot of them have misplaced priorities, and a lot of them have the wrong idea about what things are. I always say that like entrepreneurship may appear glamorous, right? You may see somebody carrying a bag that you like, wearing a shoe that you like, wearing an outfit that you like, living their lives in a particular way. You don't know what the sacrifice was in order for them to get that. And you also don't know what's actually happening behind the scenes. Perhaps all those things are fake. So have a sense of purpose that isn't attached to material things and isn't attached to soft life and isn't attached to the things that you think should be what you're seeking. I think that these things come naturally when you're not chasing them, but when you genuinely work hard and you actually like do your best to grow your network and to have a very strong network of even people that can give you these things, um, they come naturally. You don't have to chase it, and you don't have to make it your life goal. Make your actual goal something that is much bigger than you, and make it purposeful. And the things that you are chasing and the things that you want, they'll come naturally.
Do you have a fundamental belief that you've held on to most of your life that recently changed because you realized that this is no longer serving me?
My only fundamental belief that I've always had that recently changed is just about people. And that's people will always let you down. That's why you have to know yourself, because if you don't know yourself and you don't trust yourself, how can you trust anyone? Right? So in trusting people, you will be disappointed. And I feel like that's even the biggest lesson in knowing that you can't even fully trust yourself, because we're a human being and we're imperfect. And you have to start with yourself and then kind of expect anything with people. So for me, the biggest realization was just sometimes you look for that validation a bit too much in people that you think are your people and they're in your circle, but they may let you down. That's a huge possibility. So don't trust in people too much. Just trust yourself, trust in your beliefs, trust in the hard work that you put in, and the result of your hard work. And that is probably much more important than any sort of trust that you can give to a human being, because really we're all flawed. So you should also give people like a bit of grace, because no one's perfect, and people will let you down, sometimes not because they want to. It's just kind of human beings. It's human error. It's who we are. We're disappointing by nature. It's just who we are. So have more grace. Expect nothing from anyone. Don't go around kind of expecting people to just kind of break their backs for you. As life gets harder, as you get older, things will just be super super hard, and you find yourself alone a lot of the time. Like, lean into that loneliness, lean into solitude. Solitude is such a beautiful thing. It gives you so much perspective. There's a reason why, like, in all of these cultures around the world, they believe so much in meditation. Like, we have prayer, right? Lean into that, lean into silence, lean into solitude, to really like listen to yourself, listen to your mind, trust your gut. Like, my gut is my greatest asset. Trust your gut, trust how you feel, what your intuition is telling you, because on the inside, right and wrong, who people are. You don't always need evidence to prove to you that a person is like this. You'll see the signs, believe it. Believe the first sign, and keep people where at a distance, and just kind of be cordial, be kind, of course, be compassionate, but don't carry it on top of your head. Don't kill yourself for people, because roles reversed, it's a high possibility that you will be left stranded.
What does happiness look like for you?
Happiness to me is contentment in everyday life, because peak happiness is just a hormone that comes and goes. So sometimes in life you are content and everything is okay. You're in a good place, but you don't really feel happy. You don't have that like strong like happiness. And that doesn't mean that you're not happy, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be happy. But happiness to me is honestly just the contentment of daily life, knowing that I don't have to deal with anything negative on that day, knowing that I'm healthy and the people that I love are healthy. And I have random moments in my day where I honestly just like breathe, and I say Alhamdulillah, because I feel so much contentment in those moments. So it's not like a happiness, it's not a rush, but it's just like contentment. You're breathing through it and you just feel content. And I feel this way every time I'm blessed with the gift of creating something new. I feel this way every time that my mother smiles and she's happy. I feel this way every time my father is healthy, every time my husband is happy, every time my stepdaughter smiles and jumps up and down, every time my nieces and nephews run to me and I pick them up. Like, that to me is just like contentment. And I really pray against anything that would be the opposite of that, because these are things that I don't even think about, and it's not things that I would even know how to navigate, because of how important my family is to me. They come first in everything, and they are the pillar. They are the source of support and motivation and everything good. So their happiness is my happiness, and my contentment is just knowing that I have two healthy parents that are still alive to pray for me, to be there for me, to pick up my phone call, that I still have my 9 siblings alive and well, that I have so many amazing nieces and nephews that are coming up brilliant and smart, that I have a beautiful and kind and sweet stepdaughter, that I have a loving and supportive husband. Contentment. That is happiness to me.
Is there any topic that we haven't discussed that you'd want us to go into?
I only want to speak to young women right now. I just want them to know that, and I swear any chance I get to say this, I will say it. you really don't need as much as you think you do to succeed in life. You I know the difficulty, I know the pressures of life, of society, I know the difficulty of being African, of being Nigerian, of being young, of being a woman, of just whatever you are. Just recognize that it is always going to be harder for us, but it should not stop your voice or your greatness or your potential or your ability to develop something and to create. Like, you have the entire world at your doorstep. And for someone that travels a lot, one thing I will say is the future is female, the future is African. I swear to you, everywhere that I go to in the world, there's so much attention that is being given to us here, that this is the time. There's no greater time for you to be great and successful and impactful in the world than now. So I would encourage them to do whatever it is that they can to step out of their comfort zones, to leave their homes, to leave the only home they've ever known, to leave the only states they've ever known, to leave the only country they've ever known. Do your best to get an opportunity to step outside of it and gain some perspective into life, gain some insights into how life works, into how human beings are, into skills that you can develop. And you are capable of developing some super strong skills that can transform lives, that can change the world. When COVID hit, the countries that were led by women were the main countries that were at the forefront of eradicating COVID from their countries. Women leaders are powerful. There is so much negativity and bitterness in the world, and this is all happening because of male ego and and power, the tug of power, and just the neglect and people just not caring about human lives. Women are the answer to solving a lot of the problems in the world. And I'm not saying that we don't have our problems, but the reason why I'm speaking to women specifically is, and I'm also talking to mothers, because they also have to pass that on to their sons and to their husbands and to their every male figure in their life. They have to play a role in shaping their mindset and helping them to be better people. And that's the only way that we can see a better world. It's the only way. So that's my message to women. And I hope that the future that we're all headed towards is a future that sees more women leaders and gives more women an opportunity to do well, so that we can see more meaningful impact in the world.
What's the legacy that you hope to leave behind?
I really hope to leave, first of all, we have such a poor, what do you call it, maintenance and I guess inheritance culture when it comes to business, especially in Ariwa. And I hope to be able to break that a bit by leaving a business and leaving a brand for my family to continue when I'm long gone, for it to lead to many important causes. I think the power of brand is in using it to somehow make your own mark in the world, whether it's through a foundation or through some sort of like a program or an initiative or an outreach, like whatever it is that you're going to do. I hope that your brand is strong enough to make an impact in that direction. I hope that another part of my legacy is that of thoughtfulness and kindness and just consideration for fellow human beings. I think that there's so much resentment that we have for one another in life generally. And if we could all be locked in a room with someone, even if it was just for like 10 minutes or 30 minutes, there would be more peace in the world, because you would understand their perspective, and then you would have more patience and grace and tolerance. So I wish that I hope that with the way that I'm leading my life and with the things that I will do in the future, that I'm able to create more avenues for tolerance and patience and peace between people, because it's a lot of crises and a lot of causes for wars and things. It's extremely unnecessary and very petty reasons. So I hope that a part of my legacy in the long run is that my next chapter holds the key to solving a lot of the crises that we're experiencing on a global level. And I hope that I'm able to, through dialogue and action, play my role in bringing about that peace somehow, and building more brands that create solutions, that allows my family to be proud, that allows for my children to be fed, that allows for my husband to be proud as well, that allows for my friends to be positively impacted. And that's really it. And I think the legacy thing also evolves as I grow up. I think with each passing year, I have a new respect for adults and adulting and the need to just be intentional with things. So for me, it's just leaving a world that is much better than how you found it, and hoping that a lot of negative things end in my own lifetime, and for me to play an integral role in making that happen.
Thank you. This was an insightful conversation that I really feel all these aspiring entrepreneurs and women, and well, to be honest, anyone can really benefit from. And I think the main thing everyone listening would need to understand is that they should not get in their own way of whatever it is
Yeah.
that they want to achieve in this life. Because if they can just remove all those obstacles, all those thoughts, and all those limiting beliefs, it's just a clear path to victory. So thank you so much for taking the time out to be here. And I really, really hope people were taking notes and they apply these things, because I feel everything you shared is literally the starting point. And also the right mindsets and tools that they need to keep on going, not just start and then give up halfway, but to just keep on going until they get the results that they want. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing what you have in store for us in the future.
So do I.
Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, I have two small favors to ask. First, if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe on your preferred platform so you'll be notified when the next episode is out. Second, if you know someone who could benefit from this, consider sharing it with them. The more people subscribe and share, the bigger the show gets, and the more amazing guests we can invite to share their knowledge and insights with us. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.